right, and welcome to the most recent episode of What's Happening with me, Casey Foreman. On today's show, a lot of content to discuss, including Stranger Things Season 5, Volume 1. I've seen all 4 episodes, and we're going to break down each of them, as well as my overall thoughts on Volume 1 as a whole. Before moving on and discussing Wake Up, Dead Man, a Knives Out story, Knives Out 3 has been released in theaters before its December 12th release on Netflix. My full thoughts on that movie, as well as Hamnet. Get your tissue boxes ready, folks. Reviews on both of these movies to wrap up the show today. But before we dive into our content, this show is sponsored by Dubby Energy. Are you tired of the same old energy drinks and how they make you feel after the fact? Well, Dubby has got you covered. They provide clean, safe, and great tasting Focus energy drinks, only containing 10 clean ingredients. They have a boatload of flavors to choose from, and all you have to do is use code What's Happening. That again, code What's Happening, all in caps, at checkout for 30% off of your purchase. Exclusions do apply, but go get energized with Dubby. All right, and before we really get into our watch list today, there is one piece of news that I wanted to discuss. Scrubs is back. Let's go. One of my favorite TV shows of all time. We've known for a while now that this reboot, has been in the works, that it is happening. But just the other day, we got our first teaser trailer release showing the whole crew back together again. And like I said, one of my favorite TV shows of all time. Yes, a little concerning the fact that they're rebooting a bunch of different things now. And it's like, hey, let's reboot Scrubs. What could go wrong? But I can't wait to see JD, Turk, Dr. Cox, Elliot, Carla, everyone back together. And if you don't know what this reboot is going to be about, essentially, it's going to be a continuation of the prior series, but it's going to focus on how much healthcare has changed in the past 10 to 15 years since that series wrapped up. We know there's been a lot of technological advancements in the field, a lot of changes in how you talk to people, et cetera, right? So it's going to kind of show how much healthcare has changed. And if JD and Turk, Dr. Cox, if they can still do a lot of the antics that they did in the early 2000s, is that stuff so going to be allowed here in 2025, 2026? So that's going to be a lot of the stuff that they dive into and discuss on this reboot of Scrubs. February 25th is when this Scrubs reboot is officially being released. I'm pumped. And again, maybe I have a little bit of concerns regarding a reboot because whenever they reboot something and bring something back, it's like, oh, they're just doing it for clicks or just doing it for views. I do think, though, with this cast coming back, with a show like Scrubs, we could be seeing it again for the long run. And I think ultimately we could be seeing a lot more fans get involved with this TV show. So I can't wait. I'm super excited for it. But that's a little piece of news that I wanted to discuss before our watch list. All right, and kicking things off on the watch list today is going to be Stranger Things Season 5, Volume 1. I've seen all 4 episodes of this, and let's break down each of them. Really quickly, though. Really quickly. How cool is it to have a show like Stranger Things back? Is it my favorite TV show of all time? No, not by a long shot. But I really enjoy it. And how often, outside of like the Super Bowl and, different NFL games and stuff like that, do you have everybody, not just in the US, but in the world, watching the same thing? Everyone's eyes on Netflix, on Stranger Things, and everyone kind of coming together for this viewing experience. I'm all here for it. And it's nice to have Stranger Things back. But how are these first 4 episodes of this final season? Okay, chapter 1 or episode 1. Oh, they go by chapters. We'll go by chapter 1. The Crawl is how we kick this season off. And as far as my overall thoughts on it, I thought this season did start a little slow. Right? A little slow of a start. I do think episode 1 is my least favorite of the 4 that they released. It's basically just a lot of establishment because it's been 3 years since we've seen this TV show, since we've seen these characters, despite for them it only being, a handful of weeks or months. For us, it's been 3 years. So a lot of viewers do need that reminder of, hey, what's going on in Hawkins, and what's going on with our main character. So I understand what they're doing with this first episode, The Crawl, kind of just establishing what's going on here in season 5 and what we kind of have in store for us. But again, that's a lot of episode 1, a lot of establishing, hey, here's where we are now. This is what's going on. And this is potentially what we might see going forward. So I'm not always a big fan of those establishing episodes. I'm a guy who likes to just dive right into the content, right into the action, and just go right away. Right. So that's why I did enjoy episode 2 more than episode 1. Starts with an absolute bang. Again, chapter 2, the vanishing of, quick spoiler alert, Holly Wheeler. Holly is going missing. She is finally a character in this TV show after just being like the small little sister, the side character through 4 seasons. No, Holly has made her claim at one of the best characters, at being one of the very best characters on this TV show. Man, have I enjoyed her performance up until this point. But then it quickly slows down, after Holly's abduction, after the event that happened with the parents getting hurt. Episode 2, the vanishing of Holly Wheeler, does slow down. So I did enjoy it a little bit more than chapter 1 because, again, boom, did we dive right into the action. But chapter 2, not my favorite of the 4 episodes, but again, better than episode 1. And then chapter 3, the Turnbow Trap. Finally, do we have some action? Finally, we are progressing the plot, the story forward here in volume 1 of season 5 of Stranger Things. Chapter 3, the Turnbow Trap. We really start to get going. There are some really fun action sequences towards the end of this episode. And again, the whole Turnbow Trap, using Derek as a bit of a bait tool to try to lure Vecna in. And again, I'm not going to dive into all the details here because a lot of you have seen it, but I did enjoy it. I did enjoy the meeting of a new character like Derek, diving into kind of his brain. And also, like I said, the fun action sequence of, I think it was kind of our first one of this season where everyone is kind of together. They're all trapped in a house. A Demogorgon's going loose and going after everybody. It's kind of like a Home Alone where they have different contraptions and stuff set up along the house and stuff. But it's our first one of this season. I enjoyed the Turnbow Trap a lot, especially towards the end of that episode, setting up episode 4, chapter 4, The Sorcerer. And I'm here to say, all doubts you had about Stranger Things, you're watching episodes 1, 2, and 3, and it's a little slow. The story does start progressing towards the end of episode 3. But if you're like me at all, you had some concerns, some doubts while watching the first 3 episodes of volume 1. Then episode 4, like I said, The Sorcerer, by far the best episode of volume 1. And I think it's a great reminder as far as why we all love this show and why this show is so popular. I mean, come on, the whole Max reveal as far as how she's been living inside of Vecna's brain, and now Holly is there, and Elle and Hopper end up finding another person similar to Elle with the same powers as her, who we met in season 2 of the show, if you remember correctly. And then how good does Vecna look? Okay, I episodes 1 through 3, I'm watching the Demogorgons, I'm watching some of the other, visual effects, and I'm not a huge lover of it up until we see our big bad. Vecna looks incredible. Okay, I don't know if I've seen VFX look that good in a TV show ever. Okay, and rightfully so. We know how much money is being spent on this last season, how much time has went into creating this final season and this character. But it's obvious all of the effects budget is going into that man, Vecna, and he looks fantastic. So we've talked about everything pretty much, right? Like Vecna looks great. He's almost unstoppable. Elle and Hopper. Oh, right. The big reveal at the end of episode 4. Last spoiler warning for everybody. Will Byers? Will is finally a cool character again in Stranger Things. He has powers. Will has powers. I'm pumped. And again, they've been kind of teasing this whole thing, since the end of Stranger Things season 4, the whole, he feels stuff in the back of the neck. He's connected to Vecna and the hive mind. We finally get confirmation that no, he actually has power. He can control the demigorgons, the hive mind. Again, I'm not sure as far as the extent of his powers. I don't think any of us really are. But can we talk about the mic drop at the end of episode 4? Will Byers being the hero to save everybody and thus setting us up for a fantastic conclusion in volume 2, and then with our finale on New Year's Eve. So overall, volume 1, I did enjoy it. First few episodes, like I said, episode 1, really just an establishing episode. Episode 2, bam, we got some action, slows down. The story does finally start to progress in episode 3. And then episode 4, I have no complaints, absolute cinema, and reminding us why we watch this show and why this show is so popular. My rating on volume 1 of Stranger Things season 5 is going to be a 3.9 out of 5. Not quite a 4. Again, I did want a stronger performance and a stronger showing in episodes 1 through 3, but episode 4, no notes, and this has been a very solid start to season 5. Let me know what you think down there in the comment section. Are you enjoying Stranger Things season 5, volume 1, as much as I am, more than I am, or maybe a little bit less? Get down there in the comment section and let me know. But let's transition and talk about a movie that's been on a lot of people's watch list for 2025 for quite some time now. People have been kind of anticipating and waiting for this release, and I'm talking about Wake Up Dead Man, a Knives Out mystery, the latest installment of the Knives Out franchise. We have Daniel Craig returning as Detective Blanc, and yes, he does put up another great performance. So here's my thoughts on it. Well, when you talk about Knives Out, one of the first things to come to mind is just the star-studded cast that goes along with these movies, right? Looking at the first Knives Out movie, Glass Onion, we've had stars, Dave Bautista, you had Chris Evans, Edward Norton. You could go down the list and talk about all the stars that have been in these movies so far. So the cast, as far as Knives Out 3, in my opinion, the weakest we've seen up until this point. I don't think it had anything to do per se with their performances, more so the writing. I don't think any character really had the chance to stand above anybody else and really shine in their role. Again, the actors did a fine job, but as far as the characters themselves, none of them really stood out. And then as a whole, the cast, probably the weakest that we've seen up until this point in a Knives Out movie. So a little bit disappointing there, despite people like Jeremy Renner, Mila Kunis, Kaylee Spaney's in this movie, and Josh O'Connor, Thomas Hayden Church. There's a lot of people in this movie. But again, no one, even Daniel Craig's Detective Blanc, not really getting a chance to shine and thrive. He's been the main character of the prior 2 movies, but a bit of a change here in Wake Up Dead Man, a Knives Out mystery here in Knives Out 3. Josh O'Connor's character, the priest who was originally at the church when the murder happens, he's our main character. Okay, he's the guy we are following throughout the majority of this movie. He's the one doing the voiceover throughout the film. So just to kind of tell you guys as far as what you're expecting, and so just to kind of give you a heads up as far as what to expect, it isn't necessarily Daniel Craig's Detective Blanc leading the way throughout this film. It's Josh O'Connor's character, which I didn't hate, I didn't love. I think he did a really good job. And I was fine following along with his character throughout this movie. But why we watch these things, it's Daniel Craig. It's Detective Blanc and him, weaving throughout the lies in the story and finding the truth of it all. But there is also a lot of good in this movie as well, okay, including the mystery itself and the title, Wake Up Dead Man. Yes, that does play a factor towards the end of this movie. No spoilers here. You got to get out there and watch it either in theaters or on Netflix on December 12th if you want to find out yourself. But as far as my overall thoughts on the mystery and how the conclusion came about, I was satisfied. I thought it was a cool mystery. I never ended up knowing who did it up until the very end of the movie. I was wrong. I had multiple guesses throughout the film saying, I think it was them. I think it was them. which isn't always the case for me. So I'm going to give this movie major props for that, because if you can stump me and not have me knowing where this conclusion is heading, you get a round of applause. You get a solid movie score just from that alone. My official score on Wake Up Dead Man is going to be a 3.8 out of 5. So if you're a fan of the prior two movies, you're going to enjoy this one as well. But if you're anything like me, you're going to feel this was the weakest cast we've seen yet, one of the smallest performances as far as Detective Blanc, and one of the least satisfying endings, in my opinion, of the three movies. But it gets a 3.8 out of 5 and still a very solid watch, either at the theater or at home on Netflix. All right, let's continue on and talk about another movie I saw in theaters this past week. And I'm telling you right off the bat, get your tissue boxes ready, folks. It's called Hamnet, starring Paul Mescal, starring Jessie, Buckley. This is the story of William Shakespeare and his wife Agnes, who celebrate the birth of their son Hamnet. However, when tragedy strikes and Hamnet dies at a young age, it inspires Shakespeare to write his timeless masterpiece, Hamlet. So that's pretty much what this story is all about. We're following Paul Mescal as Shakespeare. We're following his wife Agnes and their son Hamnet. And I'm sorry for the slight spoilers if you're not aware as far as what Hamlet and what Shakespeare's story was, but this is just kind of a known fact, in history. But we haven't really seen this story be told on the big screen before, as far as how this story was written, what was the inspiration behind the timeless tale of Hamlet. And again, we're watching Mescal's William Shakespeare go through the ups and downs of his early writing. But at its core, this is one of the saddest movies that I have ever seen, with very complimentary storytelling features alongside of it. So if you want to get your heart broken, if you want to see a timeless tale, a story that goes back hundreds of years and depicts one of the most legendary and well-known stories we've ever heard, again, talking about Hamlet, this movie is for you. And again, it's a story that is just going to rip your heart out. My official rating on Hamnet is going to be a 4.5 out of 5. The storytelling, the performances, and the feeling that I had walking out of that theater, hard to match that. 4.5 out of 5. Hamnet is a movie everybody needs to check out. All right, and that's going to do it for us here on this episode of What's Happening. One final time, I want to ask everyone to subscribe to the channel, to like the video, and to leave a comment down there in the comment section, as we are just getting started here on What's Happening. Every little thing goes a long way. Well, for me, Casey Foreman, from us here at What's Happening, we'll see you next time.